Oh, come on, my brother laughed, raising his glass like he was delivering a punchline. Kids like that should come with a helmet and a handrail. The table erupted. Not shocked laughter. Not awkward laughter. Real laughter. Loud, loose, confident. I felt it hit my chest before my ears fully registered the words. Then my son looked up at me. Mom, he asked softly, eyes searching my face. Is my head big? The room didn't stop. It never does. Someone coughed. Someone reached for potatoes. Someone turned the Christmas music a little louder. My father leaned toward my brother and whispered, careless and cruel. That's just his Down syndrome. A smirk. A shrug. Then Dad turned to me, his voice calm, trained, dismissive. Let it go. It's just a joke. That sentence did more damage than the laughter. Hi everyone. My name is Mero Quinn. I'm 36 years old. I'm a mother. And that Christmas night, wrapped in blinking lights and forced cheer, my family taught my child exactly how disposable they thought he was. I pulled my son onto my lap. His sweater smelled like cinnamon and pine. His fingers trembled, not from crying but from confusion. He didn't understand why everyone was laughing. That broke me more than the joke. Round us, life resumed. Plates clinked. Wine poured. Conversations restarted like nothing had happened. Like cruelty was just another holiday tradition. My brother joked with cousins. My mother stared into her glass like silence was her role. My father carved turkey, steady hands, steady denial. No one said sorry. My son leaned into my chest and whispered, Did I do something bad? I smiled. The kind of smile mothers learn when the truth would destroy their child. No, sweetheart, I said. You're perfect. But inside me something cracked. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Quietly. Because in that moment I understood something I had spent years avoiding. They didn't see my son as a child. They saw him as an inconvenience they were tired of pretending to respect. And Christmas wasn't the problem. It was just the first time they felt bold enough to say it out loud. If this ever happened to you, say, same in the comments. I held my son tighter as laughter swelled behind us, already knowing this was only the beginning. Because families like mine don't stop at jokes. They escalate. And they always expect you to stay quiet for the sake of peace. The laughter didn't stop when I stood up. That's what stayed with me later. How normal everything stayed as I carried my son away from the table. No gasps. No guilt. Just forks scraping plates and my brother saying, I'm kidding, relax, like cruelty dissolved if you said it casually enough. I locked myself in the hallway bathroom and sat on the edge of the tub with my son between my knees. The hum of the exhaust fan filled the silence. Mom, he whispered, staring at the floor tiles. Am I broken? That word. I pressed my forehead to his hair and felt my chest burn. No, I said. You're different. And different is not bad. He nodded, but not convincingly. Kids know when adults are patching cracks instead of fixing them. When we went back out, my brother was already telling another story. My father didn't meet my eyes. My mother finally glanced up, sighed, and said, You know how he is. Don't ruin Christmas over this. Ruin Christmas. Like it wasn't already rotting under the tree. I sat back down. I fed my son quietly. I smiled when spoken to. I played the role they needed me to play. The grateful daughter, the tolerant sister, the reasonable mother. Inside I started counting. Not minutes. Not seconds. Lines. Every insult I'd swallowed over the years. Every time my son had been ignored, pitted, talked around instead of talked to. Every moment I had been told to be patient because family doesn't mean harm. Across the table my brother caught my eye and smirked. And in that smirk something settled in me. Calm, cold, irreversible. I realized then that this wasn't about one joke. It was about permission. And tonight they had made it very clear who they believed deserved protection. And who didn't. Dessert came out like an offering. Pumpkin pie. Whipped cream. Laughter rebooted, louder now, like everyone needed proof that nothing had gone wrong. My brother leaned back in his chair, king of comfort, already bored of the damage he'd done. My son sat beside me, quiet in a way that felt heavier than tears. He didn't reach for dessert. He just watched. Observed. Filed things away in whatever careful place children store pain they don't yet have language for. My mother finally leaned over and murmured. He didn't mean it like that. I looked at her. Really looked. She wouldn't meet my eyes. I know, I said. And I meant it. That was the problem. Across the table my brother added, smiling, "You're too sensitive, Mare. You always have been." Sensitive. That word again, their favorite eraser. My father cleared his throat. "Let's not do this tonight." "Do what?" "Acknowledge harm. Protect a child." I felt something shift in my spine. Not rage, not hysteria. Alignment. For the first time I stopped hoping they'd understand. I stopped waiting for an apology that would never come. I excused myself early. Packed my son's coat. Said polite goodbyes. My brother waved, still smiling. My mother hugged me too tightly, like pressure could substitute for accountability. In the car my son finally spoke. "Mom," he said, staring out the window. "Why do they laugh at me?" The streetlights blurred past us. Gold. White. Gone. I answered honestly this time. Because they don't know how to be kind. He nodded slowly, absorbing that. At a red light, I caught my reflection in the rearview mirror. Jaw set, eyes clear. That's when I knew. I wasn't angry anymore. I was done. And when love runs out, something far more dangerous takes its place. Clarity. The clarity didn't fade the next morning. Sat with me while I made pancakes. While my son lined up his toy cars in perfect rows. While the house filled with that quiet, ordinary peace my parents' home never had. My phone buzzed on the counter. "Mom, you left so abruptly." Your father was embarrassed. Embarrassed. I stared at the message, then at my son humming softly as he played. I typed back, "He humiliated his grandson." 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. "Mom, you're exaggerating." It was a joke. There it was again, the magic word they used to shrink pain. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened an old folder on my laptop. Medical paperwork. School evaluations. Therapy notes. Years of documentation. Not just of my son's diagnosis, but of how carefully I had built his world to be safe. I remembered every family gathering where he was ignored. Every birthday where his gift was an afterthought. Every whispered comment about how hard he must be to raise. How inconvenient. The phone rang. My brother. I let it go to voicemail. Then another message. "Brother. Didn't mean to offend. You know Dad's old school. Don't make this a thing." A thing. I finally replied, "You already did." That afternoon I scheduled an appointment with a lawyer. Not for revenge. For protection. Because clarity does something powerful. It shows you exactly where the danger is coming from. And for the first time I wasn't afraid of cutting ties. I was afraid of what would happen if I didn't. The lawyer's office smelled like paper and old coffee. I sat across from her with my hands folded, steady on the surface, while my heart worked through everything I had avoided naming. She listened without interrupting. Really listened as I explained the joke, the laughter, the whisper, the way my son's questions still echoed in my head at night. When I finished, she said gently, "Tell me about your parents' involvement in his care." I exhaled. They like to claim involvement. The word landed heavier than I expected. I explained the holidays, the babysitting offers that came with conditions, the comments about discipline, the way my father insisted my son needed tougher handling. How my brother had once joked that I should prepare him for the real world by letting people be cruel. The lawyer nodded slowly. "What you're describing," she said, "isn't just ignorance. It's a pattern." That word again. Pattern. On the drive home I realized something terrifying. I had spent years minimizing harm because it didn't leave bruises. At home my phone buzzed nonstop. Messages stacked up like accusations. "Mom, we're family." "Dad, you're overreacting." "Brother, you're poisoning him against us." Poisoning. I watched my son carefully color inside the lines, tongue peeking out in concentration, and felt something settle deep in my bones. They weren't afraid of losing me. They were afraid of losing access. That night I drafted an email I never thought I'd write. Calm, factual, final. Boundaries. Supervised contact only. No unsupervised visits. No jokes. I hovered over the send button. Then my son looked up and smiled at me, unguarded, trusting, whole. And I pressed send. Not knowing the war that decision was about to start, but knowing finally whose side I was on. The fallout came fast. My phone rang before sunrise. I didn't answer. Then came the texts, long, furious, trembling with entitlement. "Dad, you have no right to do this." "Mom, we raised you better." "Brother, you're tearing the family apart over one joke." One joke. They kept trying to shrink it, like size changed truth. I blocked my brother first. The silence felt clean. Then I muted my parents. Not forever. Just long enough to hear myself think. At school pickup, my son ran to me, backpack bouncing, smile wide. His teacher pulled me aside and said, "He's been quieter lately. Watching more than talking." Watching. Always watching. That night my parents showed up unannounced. I didn't open the door. My father's voice came through the wood, tight and controlled. "This isn't how families work." I stood on the other side with my hand on the lock, heart steady. "This is how boundaries work," I said. My mother cried. Real tears. The kind that once would have undone me. "Please," she said. "We love him." I closed my eyes. "Love doesn't mock," I replied. "Love protects." Silence followed. Then footsteps retreating. Gravel crunching. I slid down the door and breathed, not relief, not victory. Resolve. Later I tucked my son into bed. He looked up at me and asked, "Are we in trouble?" I brushed his hair back. "No," I said. "We're safe." And for the first time I meant it. But safety, I was learning, comes with a price. And my family was just beginning to understand what theirs would be. The next move wasn't loud. It came disguised as concern. A letter arrived from my parents' attorney. Polite font, heavy implications. They wanted grandparents' rights. Claimed I was being emotionally unreasonable. Suggested my son was being isolated. I read it twice. Then a third time slower. My hands didn't shake. Because the moment they chose law over love, they crossed into my territory. I forwarded the letter to my lawyer. She called me within the hour. "They don't have a case," she said calmly. "But they do have entitlement." That night I gathered everything. Medical records. School notes. Therapy progress reports. Written statements from teachers who had seen my son thrive once certain people were no longer around. Facts don't flinch. At mediation, my parents sat across from me like strangers rehearsing innocence. My mother cried on cue. My father spoke about tradition. My brother wasn't invited. Apparently even they knew better. When the mediator asked why boundaries were necessary, I didn't raise my voice. I told the truth. About the joke. The laughter. The whisper. My son's question. The room went quiet. No dramatics. No yelling. Just clarity, sharp and undeniable. The mediator looked at my parents and said, "Your grandson's well-being comes first." For the first time in my life, someone in authority said it out loud. Outside, my mother reached for me. I stepped back. "I'm not punishing you," I said. "I'm choosing him." And that's when I saw it, not regret. Fear. Because they finally understood something I had known since Christmas night. They no longer had power over what mattered most. The ruling came on a quiet Tuesday. No courtroom drama. No speeches. Just a stamped decision confirming supervised contact only, contingent on respect, education, and accountability. The words were clean, clinical, practical. I read it at the kitchen table while my son built a tower out of blocks beside me. It wobbled. He steadied it, smiled when it held. My phone buzzed once. "Dad, we didn't know it would go this far." I didn't reply. Because it hadn't gone anywhere. It had arrived, exactly where it needed to be. Weeks later, my parents attended a training session they never thought they'd need. They sat in a room and learned what words do to children. How laughter can bruise. How jokes become scars. No applause. No forgiveness tour. Just learning. At our first supervised visit, my brother wasn't there. That was the condition. My father spoke carefully, like every word had weight now. My mother asked my son about his drawings and waited for the answer. When my son corrected her gently, she listened. Afterward, in the car, he asked, "Mom, are they nicer now?" I started the engine. "They're trying," I said. "And trying is the least we deserve." That night I tucked him in. He hugged me hard, not scared, not confused. Safe. I stood in the doorway and realized something astonishing. Justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. Enough. And this time they heard it.